As some of you might know, I already made a pitcher preset for Rumble Techno in the past, but to be honest, it was pretty limited and not in a good way, which is why now, 1 year later, I finally have a new version that's a lot more capable and better sounding than the last one. So this is how it looks like. It was lightly inspired by Maddix Rumble, which is a plugin that came out around 5 months ago. But as you can see, Maddix Rumble costs $100, while Donit Rumble is, of course, completely free. Download link is in the description, by the way. And now let's listen to how it actually sounds like. So just take any kick sample you want. It works on a large variety of kicks, to be honest. Some better, some worse, of course. Just try around, really. This is how this one sounds without effects. And you can activate it simply by pressing this button here, and this is how the default preset sounds like. So a large part of the plugin is pretty self-explanatory, but I think there are a few things that are really important to know about. So first of all, you can disable all the effects by simply clicking on those little buttons next to them. If you click on the master knob, you disable the entire plugin. In the delay section, you have 2 delays, and you can set the delay time by using those switches here. So you can do quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes. And for each of them, you can choose between N for normal, dotted notes, or triplets. So this auto reset knob is really important because check what happens if I disable it. It was really difficult to implement it, but basically what it does is it resets the delay on every beat, which makes it so it doesn't stack up, especially with higher feedback values. This becomes a problem and might even distort, and when the kick drums end, then it just keeps on going. But if I enable it, it just stops. We have a similar mechanism for the reverb also. Just keeps on going, but if you turn it on, it doesn't. Then we have this little switch here where you can choose between serial and parallel wiring. And we have this little knob here where you can choose between serial and parallel wiring. In practice, what that really means is just whether you want reverb just on the dry signal or also on the delay. The filter for once is actually pretty self-explanatory. The DACA sidechains the wet signal to the dry signal. Most of those controls are also pretty self-explanatory, I would say. The only thing is maybe this fixed source button. What that does basically is sometimes your kick just has a shape that makes it hard to find good values for the DACA, or maybe you have some crazy automation going on or something. But if you enable fixed source, instead of sidechaining the wet signal to the dry signal, the wet signal gets sidechained to a different fixed signal that I chose before, and that's usually pretty short, and that's a lot easier to find correct settings in many situations for. For the distortion, first of all, you can choose between soft and hard distortion, but you can also choose where the distortion happens. So you can choose dry, which is basically at the beginning of the chain, pre-filter, which is basically after the reverb but before the filter, so right here, or post-filter, which is after the filter but still before the DACA, of course. So yeah, that's everything I have to tell you, really. Again, download link is in the description. Consider subscribing, and until next time.